Everyone feared the alien Huntress, until one man invited her inside. Shadows in the dust. Elias Vorn squinted at the horizon as crimson lightning fractured the copper sky. Another sandstorm was brewing. Third one this month. He'd spent 15 years alone on this forgotten edge of Nith, harvesting moisture from the arid atmosphere and trading it with passing caravans. Isolation suited him after what he'd seen during the corporate wars. His weather scanner beeped insistently. This storm was different. Electrical anomalies, unusual atmospheric pressure. Elias secured the moisture collectors and retreated to his bunker, a repurposed military shelter half buried in hardened sand. "Lark, seal all entrances," he commanded. The outdated AI companion hummed in acknowledgement, activating the reinforced shutters. "Atmospheric anomalies detected at high altitude," Lark reported. "Possible aircraft." Elias frowned. No trading vessels would fly in these conditions. He moved to the periscope station, adjusting the viewfinder through layers of swirling sand. Something glinted in the amber haze, metallic and descending fast. "Not an aircraft," he muttered. "That's a ship, and it's coming down hard." The impact shook his bunker, rattling preserved food containers off shelves. Against better judgment, Elias grabbed his pulse rifle and emergency kit. "Lark, I'm going out." "Inadvisable," the AI responded. "Storm intensity increasing. Visibility below 7%. Elias pulled his filtration mask over his face. "Track my position. If I'm not back in 3 hours, send the emergency beacon." He sealed himself into the airlock and stepped into the howling storm. Sand particles stung any exposed skin as he followed his tracker toward the crash site. The ship had carved a half-mile trench through the dunes, leaving superheated glass in its wake. Its design was unlike anything he'd seen, sleek, almost organic, with no visible thrusters or landing gear. Elias approached cautiously, his rifle ready. A section of the hull had split open, the edges glowing with residual heat. Something moved within, a shadow separating from darkness. A figure emerged, stumbling forward before collapsing onto the glass-fused sand. Elias hesitated, then rushed forward. It was humanoid, but clearly not human. The unconscious form was slender, with delicate features and skin the color of twilight, a deep purple that seemed to absorb the dim light. Blood seeped from a wound in her side, dark and viscous. Her clothing resembled armor but appeared partially melded with her body, pulsing slightly like a second skin. "Hey," Elias said uselessly, knowing she couldn't hear him. He checked her pulse, faster than human normal but steady. As the storm intensified around them, Elias made a choice that defied years of cautious isolation. He carefully lifted the alien visitor into his arms and began the trudge back to his bunker. Her weight was surprisingly light, her body radiating unusual warmth despite the blood loss. Behind them, the ship's systems flickered and died, leaving only the storm to cover its existence. Ahead, the bunker's emergency lights pulsed like a distant lighthouse. Elias adjusted his grip, feeling the alien's breath against his neck. "Hold on," he whispered, not knowing if she could understand. "Just hold on." The violet stranger Elias laid the unconscious alien on his cot, hands trembling as he assessed her injuries. The wound in her side pulsed with an internal light, as if her blood carried bioluminescent properties. He'd seen enough combat wounds to recognize the distinctive pattern of a projectile entry. Someone had shot her. "Lark, analyze biological signatures," he commanded, reaching for his medical kit. Unable to complete analysis. "Unknown physiology," the AI responded flatly. "Caution advised." Elias cleaned the wound as best he could, applying a synthetic skin seal that seemed to bond with her unusual tissue. Her eyelids fluttered, revealing irises the color of amethyst with vertical pupils that contracted sharply at the bunker's light. She moved with startling speed, grasping his wrist with unexpected strength. Her voice emerged as a series of melodic clicks before shifting to halting standard. "Where?" "Ship?" she demanded, her grip tightening. "Crashed in the storm," Elias replied, remaining still despite his racing heart. "You're injured. I brought you here." She released him abruptly, attempting to rise before wincing in pain. "Dangerous. You should not have." "Maybe," Elias agreed, offering a water canteen. "I'm Elias Vorn. This is my moisture farm on Nith." She studied him with those unsettling purple eyes before accepting the water with slender fingers. "I am called Lyra Nex. Third scout of the Virdathi Reach. She drank cautiously. They will follow. Who? The Sovereign Guard. I disobeyed. Her expression hardened. They would use me. My abilities. To find new worlds for conquest. Elias nodded, understanding the weight behind her words. He'd seen enough war to recognize a refugee when he met one. The storm will hide your crash site for now, he said. Rest. We'll figure out the next step after you heal. Over the next 3 days, Lyranex recovered with remarkable speed. Elias learned her people, the Virdathi, possessed regenerative abilities that human science had never achieved. She explained how her species had evolved on a world of perpetual twilight, developing heightened senses and the ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields, talents that made them perfect scouts for their expanding empire. I was to mark your world for harvesting, she admitted one evening, watching him prepare a simple meal. But I have seen too many civilizations fall. I could not continue. Elias noticed how the violet hue of her skin shifted subtly with her emotions, darkening when she spoke of her people, lightening when she observed his daily routines with curious interest. So you stole a ship and ran, Elias concluded, and chose exile, she added softly. There is no return for me now. That night, Elias woke to find her studying his collection of ancient paper books, a rarity in the digital age. Her fingers traced the printed words with reverence. Your species preserves knowledge in physical form, she observed, not turning as he approached. Mine keeps all within the communal consciousness. Does that mean you're never alone with your thoughts? Elias asked, suddenly aware of how close they stood in the dim light. Lyranex turned, her purple skin luminescent in the darkness. Until now, she whispered. Until I severed my connection. Her hand hesitantly reached toward his face, stopping just short of contact. How do you bear such isolation, Elias Vorn? Some days better than others, he answered honestly, his pulse quickening as her fingers finally carefully touched his cheek. Forbidden understanding. 2 weeks passed in an uneasy rhythm of cautious conversations and lengthening silences. Elias found himself watching Lyranex as she explored his small domain, her movements graceful, almost hypnotic. The purple of her skin caught the light differently at various times of day, sometimes appearing nearly blue at dawn, deepening to rich violet at dusk. Lyranex studied human behavior through Elias's limited entertainment archives, asking questions that revealed how fundamentally different their species were. Your kind seeks connection, yet values independence, she observed one evening. This contradiction fascinates me, Elias smiled faintly. We're walking paradoxes. The Virdathi have no word for privacy, she explained, her voice softening. Our consciousness flows between individuals. To be cut off as I am now, she closed her eyes. It should be unbearable, but it isn't. Elias ventured. No. Her eyes opened, finding his. There is freedom in silence, in choosing one's thoughts. That night, a dust cyclone threatened the eastern moisture collectors. They worked side by side in the howling wind, securing equipment. When a flying debris shard sliced Elias's arm, Lyranex instinctively pressed her hand over the wound. A warm sensation spread through his flesh as her skin pulsed with soft light. Back in the bunker, Elias examined his arm. The wound had already begun to close. How did you? Cellular acceleration, she explained. A small gift between friends? The word hung between them, a question more than a statement. Is that what we are? Elias asked. I have no reference for this, she admitted. On my world there is collective and outsider. Nothing between. The storm outside intensified, matching the tension in the small room. Elias found himself stepping closer, drawn by something he couldn't name. And what am I to you? He asked quietly. Lyranex's skin darkened with emotion. Something impossible, she whispered. Something I was never meant to find. Her hand reached for his, fingers intertwining cautiously. The contact sent a subtle electrical current through his skin. Not unpleasant, but intensely intimate. Her eyes widened at whatever she felt in return. Your bioelectrical pattern, she breathed. It resonates with mine. This should not be possible between different species. Elias found himself unable to pull away. Maybe the universe has more possibilities than either of our kinds understood. When their lips met, her skin illuminated the darkened room with pulses of violet light. The kiss deepened, tentative exploration giving way to hunger. Different anatomies, different worlds, yet something primal recognized its counterpart across the gulf of stars. Later, as they lay entwined on his narrow cot, Lyra next traced patterns on his chest. "They will never stop hunting me," she murmured. "The Sovereign cannot allow a scout with my knowledge to remain free." Elias pulled her closer, breathing in her strange electric scent. "Let them come," he said, the protective instinct surprising him after years of avoiding entanglements. "We'll be ready." The scanner alarm broke the moment. Proximity alert from the perimeter sensors. Lyra next stiffened, her skin paling to lavender. "They found me," she whispered, eyes wide with fear. "Elias, they found us." The hunter's moon Elias grabbed his pulse rifle as Lark's sensors blared. "3 vessels approaching from high orbit," the AI announced. "Configuration unknown." Lyra next moved with fluid efficiency, donning her partially repaired armor. "Sovereign hunters," she confirmed grimly. "They will not risk a direct assault without knowing what defenses we have." "We need to move," Elias said, already gathering emergency supplies. "My old transport might still run. It's hidden in the western storage cave." They slipped out through an emergency tunnel as the first scout vessel passed overhead, its engine noise unlike any spacecraft Elias had encountered. The desert night was frigid, twin moons casting long shadows across the dunes. "Their sensory capabilities are formidable," Lyra next whispered as they crouched behind a rock formation. "But they rely on biometric signatures. The temperature fluctuations in this desert may confuse them temporarily." The transport, a battered mining skimmer, coughed reluctantly to life after Elias bypassed its aging ignition system. They skimmed low across the desert floor, keeping to ravines and canyons to avoid detection. "Where are we going?" Lyra next asked, her hands gripping the dashboard as Elias navigated a narrow passage. "The Obsidian Wastes," he replied. "Old mining territory. Radiation from a reactor meltdown a century ago interferes with most scanning equipment." Her skin darkened with concern. "Will this radiation harm you?" "Not for short exposure," he assured her, touched by her worry. The miners' outpost should still have functioning shielding. They reached the abandoned outpost as dawn broke, a collection of reinforced structures half buried in black sand. Inside the main building, emergency power systems hummed reluctantly to life. Lyra next paced the small control room while Elias established perimeter sensors. "This cannot last," she said finally. "They will methodically search every sector of this planet. Then we'll need a better plan than hiding," Elias agreed, studying the settlement's schematics. This outpost was processing stellarite crystals, used for high-energy weapon systems during the corporate wars. Hope flickered in Lyra next's eyes. "If we could access their ship, I could override the navigation systems. Send false data back to the Sovereign." Their planning was interrupted by a distant explosion. The perimeter sensors showed a Virdathi vessel hovering over Elias's farm, methodically destroying everything he had built over 15 years. "I'm sorry," Lyra next whispered, placing her hand on his shoulder. Elias covered her hand with his own. "Just things," he said, though his voice betrayed the loss. "I left that life behind the moment I brought you in from the storm." That night, as they prepared for the coming confrontation, their embrace held a desperate intensity. Lyra next's skin glowed with bioluminescence that responded to every touch, every kiss. Her fingers traced the scars on his body as if memorizing a map of his history. "In my culture," she whispered against his ear, "joining during a hunt is considered a powerful bonding. It connects life force energies when death may be close." Elias pulled her closer, feeling the strange, wonderful alienness of her body against his. "Then let's bond," he murmured. Their lovemaking was like nothing Elias had experienced, her electromagnetic abilities creating sensations that transcended physical contact, merging pleasure in ways that blurred the boundaries between their separate beings. For moments that felt eternal, Elias understood the collective consciousness she had described, 2 minds touching across an impossible divide. Afterward, as they lay together in the dim emergency lighting, Lyra next traced symbols on his chest. "This is the Virdathi glyph for cherished one," she explained softly. "It is rarely used outside familial bonds. What would your people think of this?" Elias asked, running his fingers through her hair-like tendrils. Her expression grew serious. "They would consider it contamination. Dilution of our genetic purity." She pressed her forehead against his. "Which is precisely why the Sovereign must fall." Their fear of difference has turned my people into conquerors rather than explorers. Dawn brought the unmistakable sound of approaching vessels. They've found us, Elias said, reaching for his weapon. Lyra next nodded, her skin darkening with determination. Then let us show them what different species can accomplish together. Beyond the Stars 3. Virdathi hunters surrounded the outpost by midday, their ships forming a triangular pattern that prevented escape. Elias watched through reinforced viewports as figures in armor more advanced than Lyranex's deployed onto the black sand. Commander Tyrval leads them, Lyranex said, recognition in her voice. He was my training overseer. How many? Elias asked, checking his weapons charge. 12 hunters plus support crew, she replied. They will attempt capture rather than immediate termination. The Sovereign wants my knowledge extracted before execution. Their plan was dangerous. Elias would create a diversion while Lyranex attempted to reach the command ship and access its communication array. If successful, she could transmit false coordinates, suggesting her death and removing Nith from the Sovereign's attention. This may be goodbye, she said quietly as they prepared to separate. Elias cupped her face, memorizing every detail. I've spent my life running from connections. Not this time. Her skin brightened at his words, the purple deepening to a rich royal hue. Then find me among the stars, Elias warned. The diversion began with explosive charges Elias had set in the abandoned mining tunnels. As the Virdathi forces converged on the disturbance, he emerged from a different exit, firing precisely at their sensory equipment rather than the hunters themselves. Through their hastily established mental link, a faint echo of the bond they'd formed the night before, Elias sensed Lyranex moving toward the command ship. Her familiar presence in his mind felt like a tether across impossible distance. Commander Tyrval recognized the strategy too late. The scout attempts deception, he shouted in accented standard, clearly wanting Elias to understand. She uses you as bait, human. The Virdathi cannot bond with lesser species. It is biological impossibility. Elias smiled grimly as he took cover behind processing equipment. Seems like your impossibilities need revision, Commander. The firefight intensified as Elias led the hunters through a complex series of tunnels, using his knowledge of mining operations to stay one step ahead. Through the mental link, he felt Lyranex's triumph as she breached the command ship's security, then sudden pain as she encountered unexpected resistance. Making a split-second decision, Elias activated the outpost's old defense system, not to attack the hunters but to overload the nearby stellarite storage. The resulting electromagnetic pulse would temporarily disable all Virdathi technology, including their neural implants. The explosion sent a visible wave of energy across the landscape. Elias used the confusion to fight his way toward the command ship, finding Lyranex wounded but still working at the control systems. Almost complete, she gasped as he defended her position. But Tyrval has initiated self-destruct protocols. Elias scanned the unfamiliar controls. Can we use this ship to escape? The auxiliary craft might survive the pulse effects, she said, pointing toward a smaller vessel attached to the ship's underside. But we have nowhere to go, Elias. The Sovereign controls thousands of worlds. Elias helped her toward the auxiliary craft. We don't need thousands, just one that's far enough away. As they sealed themselves inside the sleek scout ship, Commander Tyrval's voice came through the communication system. This violation of natural order cannot stand, Third Scout. Your contamination ends here. Lyranex activated the launch sequence, her hands steady despite her injuries. No, Commander. It begins here. They broke free as the command ship detonated, the blast propelling them into Nith's upper atmosphere. Through the view screen, they watched the remaining hunter ships retreating, believing their quarry destroyed in the explosion. Lyranex programmed coordinates into the navigation system. There are worlds beyond sovereign reach, she explained. Places where different species coexist. I never believed such accounts until now. Elias took her hand, feeling the now familiar electrical connection between them. Her purple skin glowed with renewed hope as stars appeared in the darkening sky above them. Will they follow? He asked. Eventually, she admitted. But we've bought time, and perhaps found allies. She pointed to the coordinates, a star system Elias didn't recognize. Others have resisted the Sovereign before. We bring valuable intelligence. As the small craft accelerated toward the jump point, Elias looked back at the diminishing planet below. the place he had called home for 15 years. He had expected to feel loss, but instead found only anticipation. "I never thought I'd leave Neath," he said. "Never imagined finding something worth fighting for again." Lyranex's eyes held the light of distant suns as she leaned toward him. "That is the greatest weapon against the Sovereign, Elias. They cannot comprehend what we've found between us. Such connections between different kinds. They are the future the Sovereign fears most." Their kiss sealed a promise as the stars streaked into lines around them, carrying two unlikely lovers toward an uncertain future, one where the boundaries between species might someday mean as little as the space between two beating hearts. "Whatever comes," Elias whispered against her lips, "we face it together." Lyranex's skin pulsed with light that matched his heartbeat. "Together," she agreed. "Beyond the stars."